Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Simplify Your IBM Security. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording the webinar today, so if you do have to step away, you will be able to access the recording afterwards. If you do have any questions as we go through the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the chat or Q&A panel, and I will try to answer them as we go. If I don't have the opportunity, we'll be sure to follow up with you after the webinar and answer those questions. All right, let's get going here. Probably wondering about the title of this webinar today, Simplify Your IBM Security. And a little bit of tongue-in-cheek title there. Really the idea here we're going to be discussing is how to get your IBM security included in a SIEM solution. I'll be your speaker today. My name is Sandi Moore. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer here at Fortra. I've been working on IBM for over 20 years, primarily focused on assisting customers in multiple capacities, training, support, as well as the technical sales engineering, helping customers to identify security risks, but also solutions to help mitigate those risks. I'm also a 2025 IBM Champion. That was kind of exciting. Pretty proud of that one. All right. With Fortra, your cybersecurity ally, Fortra has been known for many years for helping organizations become more secure and autonomous. And we offer industry-leading solutions for data security, infrastructure protection, managed security services, threat research, and intelligence. And throughout every step of our customers' journeys, our experts are determined to help increase that security maturity while decreasing the operational burden that comes with it. We have a deep investment in security for power systems. We are the premier provider of cybersecurity software specifically for IBM, and our comprehensive security services help to enhance that security software with good, strong system settings. You have to start with the basics. We're also the publisher of the annual State of IBM Security Study. This is an in-depth evaluation of security data from customer systems that gives us a lot of insight into what's happening with cybersecurity and IBM. The basis of a lot of our conversation today. We're also a member of PCI Security Standards Council. Now, IBM has a reputation of being one of the most secure operating systems on the market. And I always kind of chuckle at that one because it has a lot of options available to actually secure the system, but by default, it's not secure. I would like to say that it's more securable. There is some assembly required, some changes that have to be made to actually secure the IBM better. And as we talk about our simplifying IBM security, I'm going to mention some things that hopefully you're already doing with security on IBM, and if not, maybe this will give you a little bit of a nudge to start looking at it a little bit deeper. Now, we know that security is at the top of everyone's minds. When we look at our IBM Marketplace survey for this year, 77% of respondents said that cybersecurity was in their top 5. Number 1. Not only is cybersecurity number 1 concern across the market, it has been for 9 years in a row. So this is nothing new. Security has been a concern for a very long time. We just really need to figure out what we're doing with security and are we doing enough? And if you're doing all the things that should be done, is anybody paying attention to what the results are of those efforts? That's really where the SIEM comes in, making sure that all of the security information that everybody's so concerned about is actually being consumed and used to make the environment even more secure. All right, first we have to talk about what a SIEM is. This is, of course, an anomaly. More acronyms. We have so many acronyms, and I've heard this pronounced SIEM as well as SIEM. I call it a SIEM. So, tomato, tomato, whichever way you want to pronounce it. we're talking about the same thing. But what is it? All right. So a SIEM is essentially security event information and event management. And it's a security solution that's going to help an organization recognize any and address quickly any potential security threats or vulnerabilities before they become a big problem and actually start disrupting business operations. Of course, being able to have that visibility to what's happening. Functions of that SIEM are going to include log management. It's going to be able to ingest event log data from across the infrastructure, both on-prem as well as cloud. And by having that log management, there's going to be information collected from users, applications, servers, devices, anything you can think of that can generate some sort of syslog event. Once those events are collected, you're going to have advanced analytics from the SIEM that's going to provide the ability to use and identify and interpret data patterns and correlate these events that are collected to identify and mitigate any potential security threats. Typically, you're going to have a dashboard as well that your security teams are going to be monitoring for activity. They'll be able to respond or remediate any identified threats. Again, security is all about getting to it quickly and heading it off before it becomes a big problem. We're going to come back to that too. That SIEM can also function as a valuable tool for gathering and verifying compliance data across the entire business infrastructure. So if you do have PCI requirements, GDPR, SOX, or HIPAA, all of those compliance reporting activities can be centralized from that SIEM. So getting all the information into that one spot is going to give you easier reporting, making your life easier when you're up against the compliance requirements. Now, you're also going to have some benefits that are going to come out of that tied to those functions. You're going to have real-time threat recognition, ensuring that things are dealt with quickly, right? Everything that you can do to stay on top of these things before they become a big problem, the better. Using AI-driven automation, it's going to be able to be agile enough to address these threats quickly, but also to start understanding how it's changing and how it's developing into a bigger issue or maybe a different issue out of that. You're going to have improved organizational efficiency. So having all of this information in one place is a lot more efficient than somebody scrambling around trying to find information across a whole slew of devices, servers, etc., across the organization. Another benefit is to detecting advanced and unknown threats. Threats are constantly evolving, so you have to be able to be flexible enough to see new threats, understand that something that yesterday wasn't a threat, but as it's evolved over time, it is now a threat that should be eliminated or remediated as quickly as possible. Being able to conduct forensic investigations. How do you figure out what happened? Being able to have all of the disparate pieces of information all in one place can help you build that picture so you can actually do that thorough investigation and understand, where did this start? How did it get to the core assets of the business? Also, the ability to assess and report on that compliance. We were talking about that, the ability to pull together all of this information and provide those reports for the auditors in one place. Pulling it all together, packaging it up, and done. But also the ability to monitor users and applications. Users are the core of the business. You have to have people to access data, to provide data, to make the business run. Making sure that you understand all of the places those users are accessing your applications, your servers, your assets, right? Having everything all together is really where you're going to benefit from that SIEM solution. However, there's a catch. The effectiveness of the SIEM solution really depends on having all of the relevant security events. If there is one piece missing, you don't have the big picture. That security team is not going to be able to understand truly what the problem is if they can't see everything. And this is really a blind spot. IBMI is so often not included. So what we need to do is make sure that we are pulling that IBMI security event data and including it into the SIEM solution. Let's talk about the kinds of things that you should be looking for. Specific security event sources are on the system. You've got your databases, you've got all sorts of information that's collected and being generated on the system. Where are you going to start? I think a good place to start is with QAuthJourn. This is your security event log. Think of it as your black box recorder for the IBMI, where you're going to be able to record all of the security relevant information in one place. If something happens, something bad happens, and the system is clobbered, and you need to figure out what happened, the proverbial plane went down. That black box recorder is going to have information that's going to help you understand what happened, how it happened, and who did it. You need to make sure you have this existing so that you can actually have the information available to you. I hope you never need it, but the reality of it is that the threats are ever evolving. They're not going to stop. IBMI is your core server, so it needs to be the focus of your security efforts. So what you're going to do is you're going to first figure out if your audit log is even configured. Step one, make sure that that bucket, that QAuthJourn that's going to collect this information is actually there. Once you determine that you do have an audit log, make sure that you're auditing the correct activity. Every year we do our State of IBMI security study, we find that a lot of customers, I think this last year we had 93% of the systems we looked at had an audit journal that existed on their system. However, we found that 60% of those systems, they didn't have the right information being audited. So even though they had it turned on, it was turned on for the purposes of replication. It's only cares about the creation and deletion of objects, a couple of other things, changes to data that's going to replicate. It doesn't worry about the authority failures. It doesn't worry about the new profile created that has all object versus the new profile that got created that has user class of user, right? Making sure that the right things are turned on. So there's going to be some system values that are going to help you with that. Your QAuth level and your QAuth control. So those are going to help you determine if you have the right things being collected or if you have the ability to even collect it. And then once you are sure that you have this information being audited, you need to have a policy around how you're collecting it, if you're archiving it. Are those audit journal receivers being detached and then deleted? How quickly is that happening? Are you keeping those logs that have been detached available so that if there is an incident, you can go back to the backups and pull those audit journal logs and actually see what happened? All right, so you've got auditing turned on. Now what are you going to look for in that audit log? There's going to be some system supply journal entries that are going to be very helpful. You're going to specifically focus on, at least at the beginning, making sure that you're looking for authority failures. You need to know authority failures for invalid sign-ons, authority failures, somebody trying to run programs they're not authorized to, user profile creation, modification, and deletion. Your users are the basis of access to the system, whether it's the user themselves or it's the bad guy who's gotten a hold of your user's credentials. You need to understand when new profiles get created, if they're modified, if they get disabled due to invalid sign-in attempts, if they get deleted. Why did that user get deleted? That guy still works here. He's the CFO, right? What's happening to our profiles? Not only that, but understanding when profiles are given a promotion in abilities. Did they get assigned all object authority? Did they have their special authorities taken away? Did they have command line access when they didn't last week? Understanding what's actually happening with those users. Another piece of important information is invalid sign-in attempts. User tries to sign on to the system and fails. Okay, that's a red flag. Maybe. But if they try it again, they haven't signed on successfully and they try it again, then they get disabled. That's a concern. Why would they not figure out their password? Did they ask to be re-enabled in a timely fashion? Was it even that user? Where was that invalid sign-in attempt coming from? Was it even from inside your network? Important information that's going to help you build that trail of where are these intrusion attempts happening, and especially looking for IBM profiles, QSysOp or QSecOp, or widely known shipped default profiles. Someone trying to sign on with those profiles from an external IP address. Warning, that's a problem. So making sure you've got that information logged so the security team monitoring the SIEM can put these pieces all together, because they're going to have visibility to what's that Windows workstation that was involved in that. And they may see that that Windows workstation had some new software installed on it the day before. That could be a bigger security event. Use of system service tools is another piece that should be monitored. If someone has the credentials for system service tools, they've been trusted with this extra information, but you still need to have it logged, because system service tools is going to give somebody the ability to potentially reformat disk units, patch programs. If you have a user program that's been patched to act as a system state program, that would be a red flag. So making sure that you've got these things logged so that if things start going wrong, you have the ability to say, hey, somebody was in there. I wonder if something happened, or if they did something wrong, or if it was intentionally done wrong. Network server password failures are important too. They're across the non-green screen interfaces, and some of those network server interfaces, invalid passwords should be a red flag. Creation and deletion of certain objects on the system, whether it's a library, database file, it could be a program, it could be IFS directories, anything on the system that you have identified as important or valuable to the business. You need to make sure you're monitoring for those to be tampered with. All of these things are going to help to provide visibility to the security team for the big picture of security, not just everything but the core server. Some other things that are going to come out of QAuth Journal that are going to be helpful for monitoring are vendor or user created journal entries. There are entries in the audit journal, or there can be, from exit programs. So depending on what your vendor or one of your own employees has set up, you could have entries in the audit journal for exit program actions. Think of those as your firewall for the IBMI. Somebody's trying to get into one of the non-green screen interfaces and failing. That's important to know about. Why is John from the warehouse trying to FTP to the server from an IP address that is not known to us? That's suspicious activity. That's going to help your security team understand what's happening from the non-green screen, those non-authorized interfaces. If you have privileged access management tools on your system where users can elevate authority temporarily to do a specific function or task, that should be audited, and that should be also included with the SIEM. Somebody has elevated their privileges, they've temporarily become an administrator, and That is something that the security team needs to be aware of, but it can also be a big part of your compliance reporting. Who had access to the database? Which records in the database did the user gain access to or review or modify? You've also got command security events, another area where you're going to have the ability to notify your security team through the SIEM of any events related to running commands natively on the IBM I. So if somebody runs a command, tries to run a command they're not authorized to, or they try to run a command with a parameter that you've previously defined as not authorized. Those are additional pieces of information that are going to be helpful for building that picture of what the security exposure is. You've also got vendor and user created database journals. So you may have already identified some of the critical databases on your system, and you've determined that you need to be able to show anytime or log anytime a record is added to that database, record is removed, records are updated, maybe a before and after image of the actual updates. So you're recording all of that information, but is anybody actually looking at it? So that's another piece that's going to be really helpful in including that in your SIEM logging. Making sure that the security team knows that these are your valuable assets. This is a critical database, and any changes need to be noted. Another source of information that can be helpful for monitoring for security events is message queues. There's a lot of message queues on the system. Some of them are more obvious, for example, QSysOpper, but also QSysMessage. QSysOpper message queue, security perspective, it could be that a license key is expiring on one of your security products. That's an important thing to understand. Then there's user profile problems, all sorts of things that could potentially be helpful out of QSysOpper. QSysMessage, it's an optional message queue. If you're not using it, it can be helpful for the IBM admins, because with the QSysMessage message queue defined, specific security related messages that would normally go to QSysOpper will go to QSysMessage. So giving you more targeted, focused information in that QSysMessage message queue, so you don't have to search for it in QSysOpper. I don't know how often you look in QSysOpper, but man, there's a lot of messages in there. So things get lost, and you want to make sure that you're picking up those pieces that are so important. Another potential is vendor message queues. So there's a lot of different third-party applications out there. A lot of them have message queues associated with them. Making sure that you're picking up information out of those, whether it's it could be your antivirus software, making sure you're monitoring that message queue anytime a virus is found or virus definition updates fail for some reason, or you have anti-ransomware functionality in place and somebody's been detected with a malicious access pattern that looks suspicious. Your security team absolutely needs to know about that, because there's another problem in the rest of the network. If you've got a user with access to the file server on IBM I, and they are programmatically reading, renaming, encrypting, and deleting those stream files, that's a problem. So lots of different information that's going to be available, pulling it together and making sure that you're pulling the right things is going to make this successful. All right. Now that we know what we need to monitor for, we need to talk about planning your collection strategy and any requirements. Those security events are not going to get there on their own. You're going to have to understand what's expected on the other side. So you're going to need to gather information about the SIEM itself. So this is going to take some communication and some coordination with the team that is managing the network and managing the SIEM. So that security team and the network people and you. Now, you're going to gather network information. You're going to need the IP address. You're going to need to know the port that's expected for communications. Is it going to go directly to your SIEM, or is it going to go through a jump box? That's a potential. So understanding how this communication is going to happen, where it's going to happen, what port it's going to happen on, as well as the you're going to need to know the network information in order to communicate with the SIEM and send over these events. You're going to need the IP address, you're going to need the port number, the protocol. It is going to take some coordination of effort with the network team, the security team, as well as yourself, pulling all that information together and ensuring that the communications happen. It could be going directly to a SIEM, or it could be going through a jump box before it sends off to the SIEM. Whether it's on-prem or cloud, we still need to know where to send it. The format of the events when they're sent over. There's a handful of formats. Some of them are proprietary. The Leaf format is proprietary to IBM for their QRadar SIEM. You could also be sending to Alert Logic from Fortran, which is going to be the Ceph. There could be syslog format. So understanding what format's going to work best with the SIEM is going to be coordinating with the team to understand that. There may be some other information that they're going to need, the event facility, severity, and class of the events as well. Again, this is going to vary by SIEM, and you're going to need to work with them to really understand which things are important and what they're expecting. And of course, not only do we need to know where to send it and how to send it, but we might have to actually translate some of this information. IBM speak. The network team's not going to understand, or the security team may not understand some of the information that's pulling from the IBM, or they may not understand most of it. So we need to help them out. When you're doing SIEM event logging, sending them to the SIEM, you may need to add context for those audit journal events, especially for non-IBM teams. For example, I had a new profile created. It has all object. Security team's going, yeah, whatever that star ALLOBJ is. What we're going to do is you need to translate that information. So add context. The event goes over, but add on potentially the user who ran the command, what command was used, and the fact that that user was now granted higher elevated authorities. The profile was changed, but add additional effort, a little extra note that is going to indicate why they need to know. So profile Bob was granted all object authority. This is a root privilege. Please validate with the IBM admin team. So adding the extra context so that they know that they need to care about this piece of information enough to reach out to you guys. And you're definitely going to have to identify mission critical assets and events, and so that they understand whoever's monitoring that SIEM, whether it's a service through an MDR, an XDR solution, or if you have your own internal team monitoring it, make sure that they understand those assets. Your application database, your QSEC offer profile, specific things that they may not know that is important, but you know is important. Translating this is going to go a long way for making this successful. All right, now we've got those events planned out. We have our strategy and requirements figured out. It's time to actually integrate into your SIEM. How are you going to do that? You could write your own program, but I think that there's an easier solution. Powertech SIEM Agent for IBM does provide this ability to collect all of the information we've talked about today, customize the event text, ensure that you're only sending the information that is critical for the security team to see, whether it's from the audit journal, any of our Powertech security solutions like Exit Point Manager, Command Security, Authority Broker, Powertech antivirus out of those message queues, or even those database journals, database monitors collecting before and after images and all of this valuable information. Powertech SIEM agent can sift through all of that information and forward it to your SIEM, whether it's Alert Logic, QRadar, Splunk, ArcSight. So many options available. SentinelOne, Arctic Wolf. There's so many different tools out there. SIEM agent doesn't care. It will send those to any SIEM. So you've got that information over there, regardless of what it is, where it's going. You have additional options of adding a message queue. Maybe you want to centralize your security information for your security, IBMI security team. Having all the same information collected for the SIEM, also going to a central location there. Or maybe writing it to an IFS stream file. It's flexible, easy to use, so you've got the options. Maybe there's 2 SIEM solutions. You're sending all the log data to one SIEM because you're using that for your compliance reporting, but then you have another solution that needs to receive the information so that the security team monitoring it can react. Multi-purpose activity. Super powerful, really easy to configure. You're not going to be spending a lot of time figuring out how to do it. You're going to install it on the IBMI and you're going to be up and going and getting that information over so quickly. It's going to be really strong return on your time and effort investment. With Powertech SIEM agent, you're going to get those security events you want to the output you need, where you need it. Pre-configured audit journal, command security exit point manager, QSYS message, and authority broker. So you've already got it in place. You just have to decide what you want to actually monitor. Do you have those tools in place? Make sure that you have those active so that they are collecting and sending that information. Being able to dial in which of those events, specifically for audit journal, only the audit journal entry types that you've deemed important for your security team to monitor. Pick and choose which ones, add your additional event context, do that translation, give them the additional information so that they know what they need to do, how to react, and which alarm bell do they need to fire off because of this event. And then, of course, set up your output. Where are you going to send the information? It's as easy as that. Configured simply and effectively, getting the information off to your SIEM, making sure that this is all part of it and it's no longer that blind spot in your security posture. Your SIEM dashboard, you're going to be able to have that information ingested, included in that valuable dashboard information so that that security team is going to be able to understand the threats, understand the activity that is in fact pushing this data, even drilling down to the point of changed profiles 85 times. That's an important piece of information. Normally it's pretty low. Maybe during a 5-day period, you've got a handful of changed profiles. There's a change, there's an anomaly in the data. Making sure this is all in the right place. All right, let's wrap this up. We've got a lot of helpful resources. Working with you with SIEM agent, getting that going, but you might be kind of wondering where to start. I would probably start with a free security scan. So we have the ability to do a high-level risk assessment. Think of this as your 30,000 foot view of your current security posture, so you can know do we have configured? Do we have the right things being collected that we're going to be able to actually include and send to the SIEM? All of that information I was talking about, are you even doing it? This is going to give you that quick view of it. No obligation. You're going to have also an offer of an hour of review time. So one of our IBMI security experts will spend that hour with you walking through the results so you understand what were we looking for and why did we tell you the risk that it is, so that you have that additional information to make an informed decision. We've also got best of breed Powertech security solutions that can help address any of the security challenges for IBMI: vulnerability assessments, compliance and audit reporting, encryption, virus protection, security policy management, secure file transfer, security and integrity monitoring, all of the different aspects of security from the perspective of the security solution that's going to be adding those layers of protection, but also professional security services. So ensuring that you have the backup for all of these efforts, because you can't do it alone. You may not have time. You may not have the knowledge of all of these things that we've been talking about today. You don't have to do it yourself. We do provide those services, whether it's a risk assessment and doing a very granular evaluation of your current security posture, or helping you look at your application security scheme and helping you re-architect it, and then the remediation to actually implement that architecture that you've worked with us to develop. Secure care, allowing you to have a IBMI security experts monitoring your system security settings and giving you in-depth reports every month, single sign-on, eliminating the passwords, but helping you maintain that single sign-on configuration so that it is effective. And then finally, after all of those things you've done, all the security measures you've put into place, all of those tweaks you've made, you have to test those defenses, making sure that they're doing what you expected them to do. So with our penetration testing, you've got ethical hacking that can also provide you the information for auditors, especially that PCI compliance, to show that your security defenses are in place and are doing exactly what you intended for them to do. All right, tons of information today. Hopefully it was helpful. I think that you are in the right place, and the fact that you're watching the webinar today, I think you understand that it is important to pull things back and have that big picture, full integration, making sure that you simplified your IBMI security. Appreciate your time today. If you do have any other questions that I didn't address during the presentation, please drop them into the Q&A. And we'll be following up with you. Otherwise, carry on, enjoy your day, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you.